Thank you again for spending some time with me and reflecting on the different stories of Easter. And one of the most touching Easter appearances by Jesus was with two people. One had the name of Cleopas, and the other one is just his companion. That's all we know about him. But the two of them, this was a special encounter with Jesus, but the strange thing is they didn't know about it. And so there they are. They're walking towards Emmaus, 7 miles distant from Jerusalem. And they are as down as you can get because they were so depressed and so discouraged because of what happened the last couple of days. 2 days before, their teacher and friend was killed. And it was on him that they placed all their hopes and dreams of a better world for themselves and for their children. But the thing is that it wasn't going to happen. It was just a pipe dream because of all the things that happened to him. And finally, he was crucified. And that, of course, discouraged them so much that they went back home to Emmaus. Well, you know, unless we're in a social gathering or a political gathering, we usually, and where most of the people are strangers to one another, usually we're very cautious about meeting new people, and well, they're strangers to us, and we're cautious. All right, so St. Luke tells us about the time when Jesus did just that. He became the stranger, walking along, catching up to these two disciples who are so despondent, and then he just starts a conversation with them. And it turns out in the conversation that this man, this stranger, doesn't know what happened in Jerusalem the last couple of days and the whole scene of the passion and death of Jesus. He had no clue. Anyway, so the disciples decided to tell him about a man called Jesus of Nazareth, how he was their hope, their dream, and all of this was taken away because they crucified him. He was no longer among the living. He was not with them anymore. And that, the stranger then, he picks it up from there. Very curious, of course, and he gets involved in the whole situation. And what he finally does is he talks to them about all the prophecies of the Old Testament, the ones that talked about Jesus, talked about, the fact is that it was going to be a suffering Messiah, and probably, and more than likely, not what people expected. And definitely, Jesus was not what people expected. But he listened to them. He listened to their cares and their concerns. But he opened up the scriptures to them in such a way that they were just enthralled with him. They were under his spell, the way he talked about this Messiah. And so the day is almost over, and they're at Emmaus. And so they begged him, don't go on, stay with us, have dinner with us. And it was at this dinner that the stranger did something very strange, because it was a repeat of something these disciples heard Jesus did at the Last Supper. He took bread, blessed it, and broke it, and gave it to the disciples and shared it with them. And he did the same, this stranger did the same thing. And with that, their eyes were opened, and they knew it was Jesus. They recognized him. And then Jesus disappears. Well, it's evening, it's dark, and it's 7 miles from here to Jerusalem. But that did not stop them from going to Jerusalem that very night. They had to tell the other disciples that Jesus is alive. We ate with him. Oh, wow. And then they told the things that happened in Jerusalem while they were not there. The resurrection of Jesus from the dead happened 2,000 years ago, just about, a little bit more. No one saw it happen. No one actually saw the resurrection happen. But like all the people from the earliest days of Christianity, all of them did what you and I do now. We say yes to this mystery, to this gift of faith in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And, well, it's also a way in which we, 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 we we realize that Jesus is very much alive with us. Every time we gather together to do the Eucharist, first thing we do is we listen to all kinds of stories about Jesus and about the early church. And that, of course, brings Jesus back to us very much alive. And then there's the communion time when you and I, we receive the body and blood of Christ under the forms of bread and wine. And he does again and again and again all that he did for those disciples in Emmaus and at the Last Supper time. But every time we celebrate Mass, we recognize Jesus not just in the stories, but also in the people that are present with us, because he's the one that unites us all. It brings us all together, that we are one with him. We eat the one bread and drink from the one cup, and that unites us. That makes us one to one another. We're all together in this. So we recognize his presence, yes, in the heavenly food that we share with him and with others. We believe that Jesus is alive and well and with us in this food and drink we share with him and with each other. Now, Christ is present among us at this very time. It's a tough time, a very, very difficult time, and we have a hard to really not only understand it, but really be able to cope with it. Now, whether we say or go to St. Peter's in Rome and attend Mass there in the good days, and also if we do this in some very simple, small little church in the country, or when we had a chance perhaps to be in the Pope's chapel. And there's one other, but when some in the military, when they say Mass, using a jeep for an altar, anywhere, wherever we go, the story is the same. It's Jesus present among us. Well, right now it's very weird and strange, and it's not our preferred way to celebrate. We are still in lockdown, and so we must let happy memories fill our hearts from the time past. And what we know is going to happen sometime in the future. And once again, we will be able to be together with one another in churches, and we will stay alive. Anyway, so please keep supporting each other in your prayers from your homemade church. In this Emmaus stories, we can't help but notice that Jesus caught up with them and then walked with them and then listened to them and shared a whole many hopes and dreams that don't have to go away, that they're still very much alive. So he met them where they were. Now, how about us? He also is concerned about you and me. And we have our frustrations, and so he listens to them. And he tries to respond to them and say, stick together, stick with me, pray for one another. It's going to work out okay. This is what we have to hope for. We can't just say it's never going to happen or be despairing or negative about this. Let's be positive. And so know that he listens to our hurts where we are, in our homes, in our families, and our frustrations. He knows them all. And also our disappointments. The scriptures, well, he makes them alive for us again and again and again. They are God's love letter to us. It shows how much he cares for us, how much he did in order to prove his love for us. Now that's something we need to carry. No matter what happens, that is something that will keep us alive, boost us, our attitude and everything else. And this is going to continue until the time when we can get out again and join other people in crowded churches. So please be patient and just wait patiently for the time when it's all going to be lifted. The the lockdown will stop and we'll be able to be back to what we were before. Some people don't think so. I have faith, and I believe the Lord is always with us. He will never, never forget us or despair or leave us alone, abandon us. He will never do that because he loves us too much. So that's what we need to do. Show our love for one another, support one another, and patiently wait for the day when we'll be together again. God bless you and your families.